Diagnosis used to be quite easy before. If you see somebody eating mangoes, or somebody we've seen in movies coming and checking pulse and telling, more symptoms and more easier treatment. Somebody has some giddiness, easy to treat. Okay, like not so recent past, you have hypertension in a young adult. You used to think history of backache, okay, ankylosing spondylitis. You have after ulcers, okay, Behçet's, over. Now you seem to have color imaging technologies and hi-fi tests, which we'll be showing now. So, see, this is quite easy. Like you have severe retinitis, you have a choroidal tubercle. Life, it's easy if it's like this. But it's no longer just clinical diagnosis. Real life situation is very different. So you have something very. You have some multiple two different lesions, hyperplasia of a different variety, and some vague vitritis or vasculitis. So you need to order relevant lab investigations. Can't give empirical treatment any longer. No fishing expeditions. It's because like patients are Google driven. Like they seem to know much more than all of us. Like, because before you try to think that they'll be sitting, the attendant will be sitting next to the patient, and with the smartphone does so many things. So your future is sealed in evidence-based medicine. No politics. Huh? So it's all molecular level to investigate and treat at the cellular level. So what are these? See, uveitis we know is a T-cell dependent disease. So it's proven by therapies that have been targeting T cells. So it depends on, it can be even protective depending on where and when it is produced. The cytokines are biological markers for intraocular inflammatory diseases, and it's on the way to becoming a specific diagnostic tool for treatment. Important role in maintaining the body inflammation, and its usefulness has been proven in tear film and Sjögren, tear film assessment and Sjögren's. But in uveitis, it seems to be better, no? But the exact pathogenic mechanism is not known. The upregulation or downregulation, upregulation of the inflammatory cytokines or the downregulation of the regulatory cytokines seem to be playing an important role. So these are these uveitogenic cytokines. We have there is an assay method called bead-based assay by which you do the cytokines in uveitis. There's a very good article by Rupesh in IGO. Like you can have a thorough assessment thing. There's a big list of interleukins which can be profiled and which has been proven to be of value in diagnosing non-infectious uveitis, the inflammatory state. So what is about SN experience? Like we are part of a multi-center trial based on interleukin 17, and there are some ongoing studies on dry eyes and tear film assessment, but things are still going on. So has it come to the bedside? In diagnosis, probably not yet to the bed like that much. Like there's been lot of research, I think, but it's still few diseases that is proven very well, but not very well that way in the diagnosis part, I guess. When you see in the literature, they seem to be telling that you need more and more studies to prove this, because there are some interleukins which are there in 2-3 diseases. There are few that have been profiled specifically for infectious and few that have been profiled specifically for non-infectious. In the treatment, definitely as biologicals or interleukin inhibitors very much in vogue, because most of them are these anti-TNF alpha agents which are in vogue now. Anti-interleukin therapies, specifically this group. Although in India we have to be using them with caution, this will be dealt in much more detail by Kalpana. But just to say that cytokine-based uveitis, uveitis targeting cytokines and the receptors, biologicals are the thing in the future. But the one that has definitely arrived and clinically more relevant now is based on the other chemical that decides you, the gene, the molecular genetics. So molecular genetics, we keep talking about PCR for infective etiology, for diagnosing viruses, TB or toxo. The viral genomes seem to be detected better than the parasites, but you'll have to interpret them with caution, especially in ubiquitous organisms like torch. So there can be multiple positivity. When it's not an intraocular specimen, then you are always worried. So for example, like when all you can use PCR or molecular genetics. What is this? A granuloma, pardon? So there is a mass-like lesion, a granuloma probably. So see, something like a similar simple AC tab proved that this is because of tuberculosis etiology. This is post-treatment. So like otherwise, if this hadn't been there, we would have been wondering like, what does this do in UBM? You'd try to excise it or whatever. Post-operatively, probably like you need not keep on treating some patient as steroid dependent or like infective or not infective. Do always suspect low grade ENDOF in a patient which has been chronic inflammation without originally uvating. Remember, early transient favorable response you can have in steroids in patients with fungal or P. acne infection. Another patient with P. acne proven with AC-TAP. This was one of the pictures which she had shown before. So PCR sometimes helps in diagnosing because you can have multiple positivity. This is an HIV positive patient where we saw two lesions which were looking slightly different from each other. So PCR for TB was also positive, Toxo was also positive. So sometimes you keep wondering that you keep treating one disease and the other one it doesn't seem to be improving. Then you realize that there are two infections that are happening in the same patient. So this was a patient of a co-infection, multiple infection, toxoplasma and choroidal tuberculoma. But like, how do you think? We seem to be talking about new tests. For example, I just wanted to compare with, say, quantiferon, which seems to be the new broom. Everybody seems to be thinking that is very good and all that. So if at all quantiferon, a similar situation where a tuberculosis etiology is suspected, so you see a serpiginous like choroiditis, quantiferon is positive. A subretinal abscess, quantiferon seems to be positive. But in this, quantiferon seems to be negative, but PCR from AC-TAP is positive. So does it mean that PCR is the best? Probably relatively yes, definitely, but the conventional PCR has a problem because it has a poor sensitivity due to absence of a particular genome. A study from South India have shown higher sensitivity for MPB 464 than I6, and there have been reports varied from different regions. So which among the PCR is better? So RT-PCR probably. So why is it better? Like, see, this is something like comparing a MAN2 positive and a significantly positive MAN2, like in a way of explaining it. Nearest comparison is probably the sperm count, where like morphological number and morphologically functional sperms you need to differentiate. That way it is between nested PCR positivity and an RT-PCR positivity. A nested PCR detects that there is a genome available there. Okay. See, we have a problem in Tamil actually. So Panamar Tadila. So it means if you sit under a palm tree and drink even milk, it's meant to be that you're drinking probably toddy. Okay, so like it's true that like presence at the scene of crime may be suggestive, but it's not confirmatory. So RT-PCR actually gives the genomes, the viable genomes, viral copies, or whatever the organism copies, based on which you can actually decide. So where all RT-PCR may be of help. So a 48-year-old male, obviously we spoke about this, we saw quite a lot of these kind of things, chikungunya. When somebody like Dr. Ratinaman Padma especially is there, like probably I'll talk less about these kind of infections. So another one which was proven. Serpiginous like choroiditis, again for TB. So how else we are making use of RT-PCR? Other than things which you have seen. There's something called, for example, in a patient with HIV, you have so many infections that need to be ruled out. But there are a few things that have been known that HIV itself is supposed to cause uveitis. Okay, so how do you, this is almost a diagnosis of exclusion. You rule out all other infections, then you diagnose a disease thinking that it is HIV-induced uveitis. But with the help of the newer PCRs, we actually have a series of patients where there has been pan-uveitis, all the workup have been negative, and we've done aqueous tap and blood counts of viral copies at the time of inflammation. ART alone initiated. Then after treatment, after ART, when the inflammation comes down, you again like do the copies, and you find that it is significantly decreased or nil, only with ART. So this means that this probably proves that cause and effect phenomenon, disappearance of the viral genome corresponded clinically with resolution of inflammation. So this way you can actually compare the viral copies before and after treatment. Similarly, in other situations, like we actually did a CMVR study a couple of years back, where in a GIST we actually tried to compare the same way, CMV retinitis when it was active and CMV retinitis when it has resolved. The blood and the aqueous viral copies before and after treatment. So what we realized that we wanted to see whether the CMV remains localized inside the organ alone, or whether you need to be giving systemic treatment also, because obviously systemic treatment is the thing that you need to be treating the patients with, but in resource constraints you want to know whether local treatment alone also may work or not, whether it is justified or not. This is one of the patients which resolved very well, which had high values in both in aqueous and blood. This we treated with systemic. There we treated a few patients only with intravitreal alone, where the aqueous values are much higher, blood values are much relatively lesser. So this probably can justify intravitreal injection alone as anti-CMV therapy in resource-constrained patients. So other newer ones, something called GeneXpert, multi-targeted PCR. See, multi-targeted PCR as there are some 3 target genomes for MTB. So these sensitivity and specificity with multi-target PCR were higher, and this probably improves yield. GeneXpert, it's a cartridge-based, fully automated nucleic acid amplification test. It's a TB case detection and rifampicin resistant testing. Predominantly, it was being used mainly for the resistant testings. Of late, definitely it is happening for the TB case detection. It purifies, concentrates, and amplified by rapid RT-PCR. So it actually is a machine that integrates and automates all the 3 processes into one, and the only molecular test which uses a cartridge containing all the elements necessary for the reaction. So it's a newer machine that is the future probably. I mean, it has been proven for the resistant testing for quite a few years. So for the diagnosis part, maybe it will be helpful. It provides results from unprocessed sputum samples, and quite early, and they are depending on that for thinking that is going to reduce the TB case incidence. The one problem is that you need an annual calibration, so that you need to know about it. So for example, like this is one of our patients where we had a subretinal abscess which kept increasing. We don't have too much of experience with GeneXpert as of now, because you need to know that like blood is not a good sample for thing. In fact, like, blood shouldn't be the sample. You need at least 1 ml, I think 1 ml for GeneXpert. So, and 1 ml obviously is too much of quantity from the eye. So 35-year TB abscess it was. It kept on increasing in spite of thing we were getting newer things, this HIV positive anyway. Progressive worsening in spite of ATT. So many other things were thought of. So what happened was, I don't have the picture. The subretinal abscess actually increased in size with the exudative artery, and a lot of SRF drainage was done. Patient also had pleural effusion and other things. The body fluid was sent for GeneXpert, and the diagnosis of multi-drug resistant TB was made. Then you realize that after the MDR was started, then treated for MDR, then it started scarring. So this is one way probably it might help. Yesterday we saw a few patients where serpiginous like choroiditis is multi-drug resistant was being diagnosed based on GeneXpert. So what else is on the anvil? There's something called highly conserved RNAs, microRNAs, a class of small single-stranded non-coding RNAs. It's got a critical role regulation of host genome expression at post-transcriptional level. So they say nearly 1/3 of the human messenger RNAs might be microRNA targets. It's got a critical role in regulating immune system and preventing autoimmune disorders. There have been found to be about 100 of them easily detected by non-invasive methods. A lot of studies going on this. And then what else? That's enough for now, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Suresh.
I had enough. I quit for now. Let's see in future. So there's no one wonder test or a wonder drug. More than one lab test report may be required. Be sure before acclaiming it or criticizing it to the core. Trust yourself sometimes, like rather than a chemical. So cytokines is the way forward. Definitely doing well in the management. Specific diagnostic markers will be of great help. Molecular genetics, we went through all these, has reduced the number of idiopathic uveitis. Definitely. They say a new broom sweeps well. No politics. Let's give them a chance. I meant cytokines and molecular genetics.